Hello and welcome everybody, and thank you so much for coming out on such a wild, wet day. It shows the wonderful support that the theatre has had for so many years. It's your theatre, and here you are again supporting it. And we really, really appreciate that. I'm Fran Swift, Chair of the Board, and the board who can make it are sitting here supporting Fraser, who is going to give us a presentation as to how we got here. So, enjoy.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to attend this morning. The whole point of today is really to give everyone an overview of, as Fran said, how we got here. But not just that, this is not a meeting about the past, it's really a meeting about the future and what Eastgate means and what we're here to deliver. And there will be a time for questions, comments at the end, but what I'll do is I'll just try and get through the whole presentation first to give a whole context to the situation before we invite questions. So really today, when we're thinking of having this public meeting, today's really about transparency and honesty and public engagement, and allowing all of our members, supporters, members of the public and elected officials who are with us today really understand the context in which we're having this conversation. So, how did we get here? And this how did we get here is really from September to February, okay? So I'm not going to go back much further than that, because September is when I started here at Eastgate. And it has really been a busy 5 months for sure. But a bit about me, for those who don't know, I came from both a theatrical background, having been creative producer at Cumbernauld Theatre for the last 3 years, and before that, a senior manager in national third sector organisation working with children and young people. But with a business degree on the back of all of that, having run my own business. So when I came into post, and something that I met with Fran and the board members that were on my interview back in August, was about the combination of a business focus and a business mind with a creative vision, and the joining of that together to run a fantastic local community facility like this one. But as part of that process over the last few months, I was really looking at some analysis. So a deep review of the budget and our accounts, both historic and current, and our processes and the way we do things here. So that's everything from the cafe, to our programming, to our marketing plan, to our community engagement, our outreach, and the way we support and talk with our members and members of the community. And all of that kind of forensic analysis led to identify some in-year savings right across the board in terms of some of the software that we use, staffing in the cafe. There was a staff restructuring in November, marketing spend reallocation and reduction, a new brochure design and distribution starting from next month, a change in IT equipment, contract terms, and all of our credit suppliers. So really quite a wide-ranging review of our financial situation. And as part of that, we uncovered 2 historic bills that came to light at, well, in fact, Christmas Eve, which was a wonderful way to spend my Christmas holidays. But as part of that, we then had a communication out to members in January of this year. But you'll appreciate that the events of the last 2 weeks have been thick and fast. So I want to give you a little bit of a timeline of just what's occurred. So what happened when, because it's important as part of the wider context of the story. So my appointment in September, through that analysis and planning phase, led to a communication to members in January of a projected deficit in year of around £45,000. Now, I'm glad to say that with 5 weeks to go of the financial year, we've identified some more savings. The community have responded spectacularly with that support, and that projected deficit is down from 45 to 5 in the course of 7 weeks. So I hope what you can see from that is a really fierce understanding of how this business operates and how we can get us to a longer term sustainable position, and that is the ultimate goal of myself and the board members here. As part of that looking forward to next year, I arranged a meeting at the end of January with Live Borders, the interim CEO Jill Franks, and our lead contact Jason Moyes, who is the head of the creativity and arts. Now, at that meeting, there was some pleasantries exchanged, but quickly down to the finances. And what I was going into was to secure our grant for the course of the next year. Live Borders is one of our core funders, and I'll go on to tell you a little bit more about our funding mix a little bit later on. But at that meeting, I was told that the Eastgate should prepare for a 100% cut of our grant from April 2025. Now you can imagine my anger, disappointment, and shock that there had been no communication up to that point, that we had to chase for that meeting, being at that point 4.5 months in post, and not had any communication reach out from Live Borders, despite communication out at the end of the previous year to arrange a meeting, as I thought, perhaps naively, that they would want to engage in a conversation around one of the largest art centre in the Borders. After that meeting where that announcement was made, I gave them a week and a half grace that they asked for, so they could speak with Scottish Porters Council representatives to see if they could try and secure that money. As I understand, and it's widely reported, they're going through their own transformational consultancy process where they have to identify savings for the future of the Live Borders delivery across the Borders, which I appreciate is no mean feat, and I certainly wouldn't like to be in their shoes. But after agreeing to have heard back by the end of the previous week, there was then 3 weeks with no communication whatsoever from the management of Live Borders. And so, last Monday, after letting them know this was what they were planning to do, we launched a public statement. And I can't quite believe it, but that was only just last Monday that was published. It was picked up tremendously by the press and a full-page spread in the Scotsman, the Peeblesshire, online shares, and interviews with BBC Radio Borders as well on the Tuesday. The community did exactly what we asked of them in terms of writing letters of support, and I cannot thank you enough for the letters you wrote and the pressure that you put on our elected representatives who are here to support this community. I had a meeting on Tuesday morning with 4 of the 6 Tweeddale councillors to really give a better understanding and a fuller picture of the scenario, because other than Drummond, who sits as one of the observer on our board meeting just the previous week, was his very first meeting, there wasn't a wider communication or understanding of the situation that we found ourselves in from Live Borders. So that was really important, and I appreciate, I'm very grateful that they put that meeting together very quick and short notice. Following that meeting, we launched an online petition, and within 4 days, raised over 2,000 signatures in support of the theatre and our funding crisis. So much so that those letters of support forced a meeting of the senior members of SBC with the leader, elected representatives, and some of the directors of SBC on the Tuesday evening. I met individually with Councillor Pleroni on Friday, then with David Mundell on later Friday morning, and then later that afternoon received an email about SBC refusing to accept e-petitions as part of their petitions committee. Now, that is council policy not one for me to comment on, but at that point in time we decided to close the petition because actually we'd had the impact we needed to have. We received a communication later on that day that the Live Borders were going to give us 15,000 on the 1st of April as part of our grant while we're awaiting the results of the full review of the service. I then met with Christine Graham, MSP, on Tuesday to talk more at a kind of a national level about the issue that we were facing here and what support we could get. And then here we are today with the public meeting that we launched, that we announced just last Friday. And I'm delighted to see so many friendly faces in the room to support the future of what the Eastgate is and can be. But naturally, over the course of the last 2 weeks, there has been questions from the community and elected members that have been posed directly, indirectly to me, staff and board members. And really, this is what we're trying to answer today. And some of those questions, which I'm going on to kind of give you the information for, is the Eastgate Theatre a good investment? What is the value of this cultural space? What impact does it have? And what is the vision and longer term plan for sustainability? And that's really what I hope to talk to you a little bit about now, just so that everybody is on the exact same page as to what the conversation really is and what the facts are, most importantly. So when we talk about earned income versus fundraised income, at Eastgate in this current year, 24-25, an incredible 78% of our income is earned income. Now, the average for an arts organisation is somewhere around 45 to 55% earned income. So the fact that a relatively small organisation on this scale, especially in a rural area, can boast 78% earned income is quite remarkable. Now you might be wondering, well, how is that income broken down? Well, just to give you an indication, it's about half and half between our events income. That events are the live performances and our cinema and our wonderful cafe that is such an inclusive and welcoming space for so many people, along with a fantastic participation programme and then projects, hires and a little bit of miscellaneous income as well. Now, our funding breakdown is a little bit more interesting. So our Live Borders grant there is 33% of what our fundraised income is. We also receive a project grant from Creative Scotland, which represents this year to be about 17% of our fundraised income. The fantastic Friends of the Eastgate, who run a wonderful group of events over the course of the year, is about 8%. Trusts and Foundations at 7%. Our launch of our brand new supporter scheme just in September of this year is an annual 10%, which we hope to grow. Gift aid, for those who don't know, if you make a donation and you're a UK taxpayer, we can claim an extra 25% on all of your wonderful donations. And that represents about 5% of our total fundraised income. And then additional community support and events making up another 20%. So what you can see that although we do have a good broad mix of funding, the Live Borders grant is a significant chunk of that. And that's why it's so important that we raised the public announcement last week. Because the loss of this core grant takes a huge hit to our finances. Now, nobody can expect an organisation within the course of 6 weeks to be able to create up a brand new plan to earn 60% more profit, not just income, but profit, or make £60,000 worth of savings on an incredibly already very lean operation. What I was so impressed by when I started here was just how hard every single bit of the organisation worked to make that 78% earned income. And just how important every facet of the organisation was working together to make this organisation work and deliver for our community. But the funding landscape in which we operate in is quite fundamentally different from years gone by. And the difference of that is really a core understanding between project funding and core funding. So Live Borders represents a core funder. Now, core funding refers to financial support for an organisation's essential operating costs, things like salaries, building, utilities, allowing us to function on a day-to-day basis, while project funding is specifically allocated to single, defined projects with clear objectives and timelines with specific objectives. Now, there was a statement made as part from Live Borders that as an independent organisation, we were able to raise our own income, raise our own funds. And while that is true, and we do, the funding landscape is such that there is a lot of project funding out there, but very, very little and highly competitive core funding. And so to have the loss of a core funder at that stage is what becomes such a real pull on resources here. So I just wanted to make that distinction, because I've had a lot of questions about, well, why can't you just apply to all the trusts and foundations in the world? And we can, and are, but a lot of them are project funding. So only about 10% of that money can come towards core operating. The rest goes on direct delivery of the project. So you see, while we can increase our earned income from that perspective, it doesn't actually add a huge amount to be able to deliver the service. Now, what is the funding plan for next year? Because we are actively working on all the different facets of what that could be. So part of that is trusts and foundations. We have a significant application into the Garfield Weston Foundation, one of the only funders who will deliver core for charities. We also have an application into the Foyle Foundation for a net zero project, because not only are we looking to increase our earned income, we're also looking to reduce our outgoings. And one of those projects that we're looking at is the replacement of all of our lighting in our public spaces, and that will help to contribute to our reduction in our energy costs. Our energy costs are on average about £45,000 a year for electricity and gas of this building. This is a beautiful building and a wonderful space, but it's old. And old buildings are expensive to heat and expensive to run. And so we are looking at that kind of longer term sustainability, and that net zero project is part of that. There's a whole host of other trusts and foundations we will be applying to next year as well. A huge part of our plan for next year is obviously fighting for this core Live Borders funding. We have an 18-month grant from Creative Scotland, so we're funded by them for the course of next year, and we'll be looking to put in a further application from April 26 onwards. We're going to be working in this financial year to launch our legacy scheme for those who want to make a lasting legacy donation in their wills. Our members and supporters scheme that launched in September, we're looking to actively grow that, and those of you who are already signed up to that will maybe appreciate the challenges we've had with our wonderful friends and partners at RBS and being able to take our direct debits. And I'm delighted to say that we're thankfully now over the hump of that, and from March we'll be able to start taking those direct debit payments as well. We're also looking actively at wind farms. So because of where we're situated in Peebles, there's not many that directly link to us, but we're constitutionally set up to serve the whole of the Tweeddale area. And so there's a number of other wind farms we might be able to look into, and we're actively making approaches to those. And we're also looking at entrepreneurial ideas. So something that sits out with the realms of the theatre, out with our direct delivery, and to say what can we do that might bring in an additional source of income which sits outside of our core. And hopefully more to come on that in the very near future as we kind of work in the way in the background to make that happen. But a question I've often been asked as well is, well, value for money and impact from Live Borders. Well, this is one of the questions that was posed to me at that meeting. Why should we as an organisation or Scottish Borders Council fund an organisation like the Eastgate? Well, let me tell you why. What do we deliver? And I don't think people understand just how much we deliver and the breadth of our delivery. So we deliver an exciting and diverse year-round programme of arts, entertainment, films, talks and much more. A high-quality programme of regular activities that encourages our participants to learn, develop and thrive both physically and mentally. An exceptional provision for individuals with learning difficulties, physical disabilities, learning difficulties, dementia, Parkinson's, through regular classes, workshops and sharing sessions. Rehearsal, performance and exhibition spaces used by many artists and practitioners from across the Scottish Borders and beyond. Bookable spaces, technical facilities and general support for at least 20 local organisations every year. Access for Borders audiences to national and international artists of the highest quality. Opportunities for people of all ages and abilities to gain skills, knowledge, experience and confidence through volunteering and work placements. A strong sense of place, transforming a historic building into in a conservation area into a welcoming, accessible meeting place for all. A lively and distinctive cultural strand within the tourism portfolio, so important to the Tweed Valley area. Major economic impact, with the Eastgate returning more than 400,000 per annum to the local area through employment of staff, freelancers, payments to artists, practitioners and local suppliers and service providers. And importantly, a vital social impact of around 100,000 visits to the Eastgate per year, testifying the many ways in which the venue brings people together, reduces isolation and loneliness, and provides inspiration and entertainment, and creates joy all year round. Now, our participation activity that I was talking about, this is a snapshot of a week in the Eastgate, of the wonderful classes and workshops and programmes that go on in this building. Some delivered directly by us, the majority delivered by partner organisations and freelancers who use this space as a real cultural hub for activity to take place and to happen. And this is really about diversity of access and diversity of opportunity for a diverse group of individuals. Now, when we look at that grant we get from Live Borders, I thought it was interesting to look at the cost per attendance as published by Live Borders in their most recent set of accounts for the other Live Borders run facilities. And that is £9.60 for sport, £3.43 for libraries, £14.90 for museums and the Great Tapestry of Scotland, and 60 pence for the Eastgate. The starkness of this figure is really important, because that £60,000 that we receive on an annual basis goes towards supporting a facility for 100,000 people to use on an annual basis. Now, I'm not here at all to pit organisations or venues against each other. It's not what I'm here for at all. However, it is particularly frustrating when another culture facility along the road in the Borders is underwritten, the losses are underwritten by the council to the tune of just under £500,000 over the last 2 years for 20,000 people a year to attend. When the Eastgate, a thriving, positive and sustainable organisation, receives £60,000 to deliver on the scale that we do. And so that's why I think it's important when you're not just talking about this, it's about the whole provision of culture across the whole region. Now, it's important also to talk about what the vision for the future is, because I'm standing here today and stood at my interview here in August to talk about what the future of the Eastgate is and why I believe that there is a positive future for us to deliver. And in this next financial year, starting in April, we'll be developing a brand new in-house production strand, which makes us the only producing venue in the south of Scotland. A fantastic, diverse programme, which will launch our brand new season in just 2 weeks' time. You'll see the brand new brochures hitting your doorsteps or in the venue. And later on this year, we're having our first professional dance programme as well. A brand new exhibition on screen programme starting from April as well. Sort of some real interesting innovations coming your way. Brand new youth initiatives starting from April of next year. A brand new musical theatre programme that myself and Erin will be delivering as part of the Easter holidays, and more throughout the year. A growth of our mini festival programme. A lot of you may have attended our Wild Writers Festival, our biggest one yet, so thank you so much for those who attended. And there's so much more to come over the course of this next year. And enhancements of our participatory programme, continuing to grow what is already a high quality and excellent delivery. But some people have questioned our ability to make a balanced budget in light of this. So this is all based on the ability to have that core grant from Live Borders. But let me just tell you how we're going to increase our earned income to the tune of 78,000 in next financial year. Our new in-house productions expected to bring in 15,000 of earned income. Event hire, an extra 5,000. Growth in live event cinema sales, 15,000. Our cafe projected to bring in a further 29,000. 5,000 in festivals, and 9,000 in additional fundraising. So that's 78,000 that we're looking to increase in our earned income next year. Now, some of that might seem ambitious, but it's ambitious based on fact. Because if you look at the financial trends over the course of the last 4 years, you will see a steady and sustained growth at every stage post-COVID. So our projections are not wild. They are ambitious, but they're ambitious based on percentage growth trends that we have seen over the course of the last 4 years. And that's how we can see a sustainable approach. And that's what gives us confidence in our figures for 25-26. But with that comes, of course, increased expenditure. So let me tell you some of the things that have been added onto our budget next year, not all of which of our choosing. So a growth in direct cost of delivery of about £30,000. A national insurance increase with the change in legislation of £6,000 a year. An increase in the real living wage to £12.60 will add an additional £10,000 onto our bills next year. We were informed at Christmas that Scottish Borders Council have removed our 20% discretionary rates relief, which will cost us an additional £6,500 next year. That's something that we're actively fighting and actively hopefully joining with other cultural organisations in the Borders who have been hit by this change, all because we're a licensed premises. And then overheads of £25,000. And the majority of that is an increase in utilities costs and predictions. So you see, although we're bringing in an additional 78, this is an additional 77 in expenditure. So even with an ambitious plan for growth and earned income, we're hit by these rising costs at every stage. And so the fight to remain even is at every single level. And that's why that core funding of £60,000 is so crucial to be able to deliver this sustained facility. Now, I would challenge anyone to come and say that we weren't working hard enough, that we weren't a lean organisation delivering for our community on every single penny of that earned income that we receive, because you can see tangibly how we're able to make that happen. So, what are the next steps? Well, what can you do? We have our wonderful friends of the Eastgate downstairs selling raffle tickets for their current raffle, which launched in February and gets drawn in September. We have a range of fundraising events happening over the course of the next few weeks. The Friends Film Night, we can sing along to South Pacific. A talk from leading forensic psychiatrist, Dr. Morrison. A pre-loved sale in March as well, back to wow you with a range of fantastic goods that you can buy and purchase. We also have obviously our donation link through Just Giving or directly to the box office, and this facility would not survive without the generous support of the community. Community arts facilities like this across the country rely heavily on the community to support them. Government funding is being reduced. Trusts and foundations are getting smaller and more competitive. And the only real surefire way we have of supporting this is of the community that actively use it to spread the word and help this organisation survive. And that's not unique to us. That is every arts organisation and non-arts organisation, charity across the country delivering really local services. You can become a member and supporter. We have forms downstairs if you want monthly or annual donations. And we have our first members and supporters exclusive event happening 2 weeks today as well. So more to find out if you're one of our members and supporters. There'll be an email coming out on Monday for that. You can, of course, buy tickets. Use the cafe. Come and use the service that we are here to provide. You can use your power to spread the word. Have the conversation. Challenge people's perceptions. This organisation has been existing here in Peebles for the last 20 years, but this is the exciting start of a new chapter, which you're all involved in by being here today. And I want you to encourage people to come help change the narrative, help them understand and reintroduce them to this wonderful facility. And then prepare for the next steps, because we still have an active fight on our hands here. We will be asking next week some pertinent questions directly to the executive of SBC. How will this decision be made on the review? What criteria will be used? Who will be in the room making the decision? And crucially, when will that decision be made and when will it be communicated? We don't have this information. None of it's been shared. And so we'll be writing a letter on behalf of the board and myself to the chief executive of SBC to give us an answer, to give us some security, to allow us to plan. The new financial year starts in 5 weeks' time. I don't know how anyone could be expected to prepare an organisation for that potential size of cut without a plan. So we then wait for the results of the Live Borders review and the funding outcome for 25-26. We're expecting, from what we've been told, that review to be concluded in April of this year, and then to be informed afterwards the impact that will have, not just on the Eastgate, but of course on cultural, sport and leisure services right across the Scottish borders. And then we commit to having a members meeting once we have the results of that review. So we can tell you exactly what we know, what's been happening, and where we can go from there. But that we continue to fight. We continue to look positively to the future. And we continue to deliver a fantastic programme on a day-to-day basis here from the Eastgate. So I hope that gives you a little bit more context, a little bit more understanding of just how the Eastgate operates, what we deliver, and why we deliver it, the impact that has on the community, and why we should be here to deliver the cultural services for Tweeddale for years and years to come. Thank you so much for your time. That's my presentation finished, you'll be glad to know, but we will open it to the floor for questions, comments, statements, and my wonderful colleague Erin is coming down with a microphone for anybody who wishes to speak. But thank you very much.